to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And we are doing a special edition here today because my guest was supposed to join me last Thursday, but as listeners know, Thursday didn't actually work out for doing a show, so she was delightfully willing to join me early today. I'm going to do two shows back to back, so I'm starting off with her, and I have to say, just my initial impression, this is well worthwhile. I'm really glad that we're doing this. So, Danielle, thank you for joining us. You're an empowerment coach. I like that phrase, an empowerment coach.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Well, I feel that in order for us to really drive towards what it is that we want, there's always an element of empowerment that's required. So I really wanted just to approach and target everyone. And in doing so, I think everyone requires a little bit of empowerment to get to where they want to get to. So I figured that would kind of, encompass a little bit of everyone.
It certainly captures the spirit of being as helpful to humanity as possible, because what better way to be helpful than to empower people, which basically means to make them feel like they actually have their own power, right?
And yeah, absolutely. And the crazy thing is that we all do, right? It's just a matter of just reigniting it to come to light.
It's funny that we're talking about this because in the midst of other things that I was doing today, I was playing an audiobook. I was playing Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. And of course, one of the things he talks about in that book is this whole idea of being empowered through just your focus, where you go to focus your attention. And
exactly.
It's huge. It's a really, I love the way he describes too. I mean, we hear a lot of people talk about opening your heart, opening up chakras, all that kind of stuff. But the way he described it was really, really good. He said, essentially, when you're opening your heart, all you're really doing is giving your attention to something without being judgmental or frustrated or getting upset about it. You're just giving it your attention. And when you think about it that way, all of a sudden, opening your heart seems so much easier.
Yeah, I love that you brought the non-judgmental piece to that, only because, as coaches, we're always trained to, don't judge, be non-judgmental. But, it's part of human nature to judge, only because of our past experiences and our beliefs, right? But the key is to have awareness of that and try to kind of dig deep and understand why that judgment is coming about and be curious about it. I think that's where, the trick is try to find out, okay, if I'm feeling this way about X, Y, and Z, what is it about me that's causing me to feel that way? That's just a little thing on judgment or non-judgment that just kind of popped into my head when you said that. But it's I think it's, as a coach, it's also important for us to be gracious with ourselves, right? And just remind ourselves that we're also human and we're also constantly growing and developing. And it's just a matter of just bringing that awareness.
That's been a theme lately here on the program, talking about all the different ways that we beat the crap out of ourselves.
Oh, I know.
We're so good at it. We're skilled. I mean, it's this is like the ultimate resume thing. Oh man, I am so good at beating myself up.
I know.
And one of the ways we do it is through the judgment. I mean, you're touching on the judgment in a very important way. You're probably aware of the Apple TV series Ted Lasso. They did a whole little bit in there about judgment. They put out the phrase "be curious, not judgmental," and it's kind of gone viral as a result of that TV show. People are putting it on T-shirts and doing tattoos and all that kind of stuff that just say "be curious, not judgmental," which I love.
Yeah, so prior to coaching, I was in management, and one of the things that I read a lot of John Maxwell, The 5 Levels of Leadership, love that book. And a lot of times he mentions, whenever someone does something, don't just assume, just create some curiosity around the action so that you can kind of be a little bit more open-minded as to why things perspired the way that they did.
Right. Yeah. The other piece to the judgment thing, this is a piece that I think doesn't get enough attention. And I'm going to be curious to know what your take is on it, because I believe there's an actual difference between being judgmental and being discerning. To me, discernment is about, yes, you can see differences. You're just selecting what you like.
Mm,
Whereas judgmentalism is, yes, you see differences, but you're going to point out what's wrong.
mm. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, well, judgment is not always negative.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Right. So it's not necessarily something that's wrong. It's just you're placing, and it's funny because I had one of my clients do a judgment journal, and I was like, anything that you judge, and he was like, I'm constantly judging, like everything. Like I drive, I'm judging the driver in front of me, I'm judging the car next to me, I'm judging the way that person's running, and so on and so forth. But not all of them are negative, right? Um, so yeah, it's interesting that you place that. But usually when people think of judgment, they automatically think of it being a negative thing.
That's the way the word is usually used.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That to me was always a real. We actually did a whole couple 3 episodes on just this exact topic,
Yeah.
because to me, I used to take the position: why is everybody going negative on judgment? Because it's like they're twisting what I thought the original meaning of the word was around. Because to me, judging is simply it's a form of selection. I actually got kind of turned it into, well, I see your viewpoint. Let's differentiate between discernment and judgment, because discernment, we don't really think about discerning as, well, I discern this terrible thing about you, so we can kind of like take the baggage away, so to speak, when we speak of discernment, since most people use the word judgment negatively. But I'm kind of with you on that, because you're
Yeah.
right, it can go either way. It just depends. It really depends on what it is you decide to feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in order for you to judge, there has to be a yes and no, good, bad,
Hmm.
light, dark, but for whatever reason, and I guess it's human nature to always kind of veer towards the negative, just
Mm.
our primal need to protect, right? So we kind of always kind of veer towards the negative, so that create a little bit of protection. But yeah, but in order for you to be able to judge something as bad, then you'd also be able to judge something that's good,
Oh, that's right. And
right?
actually, I one of the things I picked up from a co-host, I really like this. I expressed it just now in terms of good and bad. I actually don't normally think in terms of good and bad anymore. I think in terms of preferred and not preferred, because
Hmm.
I like to take that baggage off the table entirely and just say,
Yeah,
well, yeah, it's perfectly okay for me to have a preference.
yeah,
I can love something without actually liking it. I can love
right.
someone without actually liking them.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but that doesn't mean I want to hang around with them, right? It just means that, yeah,
yeah.
okay, I appreciate who you are. Let's go your way, I'll go my way.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think one of the things that is hard also for us to kind of encompass in our day to day is just taking things just as they are, right?
Mm.
So to your point, not placing that judgment and just being like, okay, well, this, and I hate it when people say it is what it is, but truly, this is what it is, and it's not good or bad. It just is what it is, and then what are we going to do about it,
I think
right?
people say that because they don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, that could be very true. That could be very true.
The other thought that comes to my mind about this whole judgment thing is that it really, since it really does come down to how you feel about it, it also depends upon how you decide you want to feel about it.
Oh
Because
yeah.
that selection, that's one of the parts of this whole puzzle that kind of get overlooked a lot.
Mm,
We actually get to choose our reactions to things. We're so used to the idea that we're programmed. Yeah, I think you even used the word programmed, but we're programmed to react certain ways. But I also look at things like, what kinds of ways do people look to get entertained? Well, they watch movies that are chock full of violence and horrible things going on, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So I have
yeah.
to say to myself, well, they like the negativity. They don't necessarily want it in their own lives, but they
Yeah.
like it enough to go pay a ticket to watch a movie about it, or they like it
Yeah.
enough to listen to a song about it or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy about negativity too, especially, I mean, I know you mentioned negative self-talk earlier, but there is an addictive component. Now, I don't want to butcher the science because I'm not a neuroscientist, but
Mhm.
there is a area of the brain, I believe it's the basal ganglia, that produces specific hormones
Mm.
that create an addiction to negative thoughts and negative feelings, to the point where you almost become so accustomed to it that feeling good kind of feels foreign. And when it's foreign, it's somewhat uncomfortable and scary. And then you try to find ways to go back to how you were feeling before that negativity, because that's what
Mm,
now you're used to.
hmm.
Right. So going back into programming, it just really requires a lot of inner work to almost reprogram your brain. And by the time we're, I think, 35, that program is like hardwired, right? So if
Oh,
you're
tell me
past
about
30,
it.
yeah,
I'm 30
right.
years past 35. I can tell you it's really hardwired.
Right, right.
You have
Yeah.
to do a
So
lot to
so in
overcome it.
order so imagine the work that one would have to do in order
Yeah,
to completely shift that. It's pretty intense work, but
it
it's it's
is.
it's not impossible to do. And many people do it through,
Yeah.
meditation, you know, coaching,
Hmm.
a lot of other techniques out there that can help them kind of rewire their brain to live a more happy and less negative life, for real.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which is ideal. That's absolutely the best place to be. We were
yeah.
talking about that a lot with the guests that we had on the show yesterday. He's very much into the idea that no one particular technique or modality is going to work for everybody. So
Yeah.
with his practice, they like to. I think he said he had 15 of them that they like to select from, and then they try to mix and match it with the person that they're working with. I'm curious, do you do anything like that? I mean, do you have like certain things that you find always work, or how do you help people out? How do you help them find the right thing?
It's funny. I actually, when I started my coaching, my pursuit for coaching, I went into one school and completed that, and then ended up like applying to all these different certifications, and got about, I think, 5 certifications total. And from those 5, I just kind of mix and match the ones that kind of make sense for the client. I agree with your previous guest. I think it's very unique to the individual. Coaching is such a nebulous approach to, I mean, because humans are emotional, right? Whether we want
Mhm.
to admit it or not, we are. And not everyone's going to act the same way, because
Mm.
it all depends on our experiences. It all depends on our beliefs and things that we've gone through. So it's really going to have to match that person and their personality and what they respond best to.
We have a couple of people listening in live stream as we're recording. One of them, Debbie, left a comment. I wanted to share it with you and get your reaction on what she had to say, which I thought was pretty good, actually. She says,
Yeah.
we can release the emotional attachment to the outcome, and then it's no longer a trigger for judgment. We see things as right or wrong, dark or light, etc., because of programming and beliefs.
Hmm. Yeah, that's called detached involvement. So that's when you become not only the participant, but also the observer of your life. So you are so consciously aware that you are able to pick the reactions that you want for specific situations.
Hmm.
Whereas right now we're very reactive, right? And it's hard for us to, well, how do I want to feel at this moment? No, we just simply feel, right? But when you are able to build that detached involvement and not only become the participant but also the observer of your life, that is a whole different experience.
It is. And in
Yeah.
fact, I was actually thinking about today. I was out running an errand, and as I'm driving around, I was kind of thinking about this generic topic. So it's not a surprise to me we're talking about today. Of course, it's coming up in the conversation, right?
Of
Uh,
course, of course.
but yeah, but nevertheless, I was thinking about it, and I was asking myself, why is it that with so many different modalities, practices that you can do, a lot of them do a great job in helping people to use Michael Singer's phrase, open the heart, to
Mhm.
break through, to remove the resistance points, all that kind of stuff. But very, very few actually talk about what to do next. And it
Mm.
occurs to me that it's really important once you get to that point. I think this is true. I'm going to be curious to see what you have to say about this. I think at that point, it's really important to find something you like so you can really just latch on and say, yeah, feel great, and just build that energy up. The energy the singer is talking about, that energy that comes from within, and just let it start to really flow. The best way to let it flow is to say, I like something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's creating that passion, right?
Yeah.
Towards something. And I would even say, like, why even limit it to one thing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like, why limit just to one thing? I would explore all the things that, allow you to fall in that state of flow and run with it. I mean, that's a beautiful place to be in. And it's unfortunate not many people are able to get there, or they're just not comfortable fully letting go and dropping down their barriers to experience that. But once they do, it talk about addiction. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that you want to experience all the time. But it's also important, as you do experience that sense of flow, to never chase it, because every time you sense it, it's going to be different.
Let's
And
talk
every
about
time,
what that means to chase it, because that a lot of people use that phrase, and I've never really heard a clear definition about it. So when you say chase it, what do you mean by chase it?
so let me use meditation for an example.
Okay.
So when you're meditating, oftentimes you can fall into this like really transcendent state, and you have this euphoric experience,
Hmm.
right? Like, let's say that was the first time you've ever experienced that, and the next time you go to the meditation, you're thinking, I want to experience that, I want to experience that, how can I get to that, right? But then by doing that, you're completely negating the whole point of the meditation, right?
And
And that
explain
that
why
would
that's true. Why is that a negation of the point of the meditation?
well, because you're not in the present.
Ah, there
You're
we go.
chasing something from the past,
Yeah.
right? You're chasing a past experience. And, by chasing the past experience, you could be avoiding a future experience that could even surpass the past one,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
you're so focused on experiencing that one thing once again, that it doesn't allow you to kind of fully fall free into that state, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, and in fact, I'll go a step further and say I think that's actually a working definition of what appreciation really is.
Yeah. Yeah. And just really being present, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think we
So
often get the feeling that appreciation has to be about, you know, uh, not that there's anything wrong with it. I don't mean to cast aspersion about on what I'm about to say, but it's all about doing ho'onoponopono, where you're always having to say, "I'm sorry, thank you, please forgive me, I love you." You're like, no, it's just that's fine. That's a good activity, but
right.
appreciation is just appreciate. There's no magic thing going on here. It's just, oh, this is good. I like this. That's appreciation.
Yeah, yeah, and just sit in it, right? And just like
Yeah.
experiencing it is just an amazing feeling. It's funny that you talk about appreciation. I actually had a newsletter today, and it was all about gratitude, just trying to teach people on how to practice that a little more, because gratitude's kind of like a muscle. So
It is.
the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
And the easier it becomes, the more you do it. And the more you
Yeah.
do it, the more abundance you feel. And then, improving sleep, stress, your immune system. So there's so much that comes along with it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that, and to your point, it doesn't have to be this like, oh, I'm grateful for my house, or which, I mean, you should be, right? But
Which is great, yeah, it's good to
yeah,
do, it's
you
just
should be.
yeah.
But I mean, last week I had a horrible cold and I couldn't breathe out of my nose. And I was like, now that I can, I'm like, I'm so
Mm.
grateful for
Yeah.
breathing.
That's an easy one, right?
Yeah, I mean, but but to my point, right? It's so easy that we forget to apply
We do.
gratitude to it,
Yeah.
And if we remember, like, wow, like that felt great, that felt so good. Um, and it's those, like, even those even smaller things, right? So it's just being able to appreciate all those things, that kind of, going back to the meditation, allows you to be in the present moment.
I think what we're really addressing here is the importance of building a habit of paying attention to those little things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, like I mentioned earlier, right, it is a muscle, and it's something that needs to be exercised. So
Mhm.
if it's not done consistently, right? I mean, you can sit and appreciate everything for 1 hour once a month, but it's not the duration, it's more the frequency of you doing it that would have an impact, just like a muscle, right? Frequently exercising a muscle will lead to hypertrophy and bigger muscles. And same thing with habits and things of that nature.
Yeah,
It's
isn't
just
it interesting? It's not about how hard you strain with the muscle, it's how often you use it.
exactly. Yeah. So same thing with gratitude, right? It's,
Yeah.
it's it's how often are you using it, and are you implementing it on a day to day? It'll have a greater impact, if it's, even if it's 2 minutes a day.
Mm.
Um, better that than just 60 minutes at the end of, of a month.
I think that's the other piece of it too, recognizing this is how much I've been able to do. Can I do a little bit more?
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
have to do
Yeah,
a
of
lot more,
course.
just do a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean that ties into like that whole Atomic Habit by
Hmm.
James Clear, right?
Hmm.
It's okay, have these small wins, and then as you progress, you then slowly add a little bit more into it, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and that can be, you know, you could start off just setting the alarm for 6 a.m. and the next thing you know, you're setting it for 4 a.m. and you're doing all these things in the morning. You've had an entire life before anyone's even woken up. But that's something that's slowly progresses into fruition. It's not something that just happens overnight.
Let's talk a bit about energy
Yeah.
and the nature of energy itself. Again, this is coming because I've been listening to the audiobook of Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, and he really does a nice little bit on how um, the experiences that we have feel different depending on how we feel about them. Like I guess the example he gave was you're in your 20s and you break up with your girlfriend and you're depressed and nothing that you do is gonna make any difference. And this goes on for days and weeks, and then all of a sudden one day she calls you up and she's so apologetic and, oh, I've made such a mistake breaking up with you. Can you please forgive me? All that, and your entire mood shifts into an entirely different gear because all of a
Yeah.
sudden you just opened up and all of a sudden energy's flowing, you get the mariachi band going because life is back again. That
Yeah.
energy is amazing.
Yeah, it is. But so let me ask you this, in that scenario, was the energy shifted upward after she called?
In the way he described it, yes, it shifted upward because of the call. That was the way his scenario was laid out, and the point he was making is the energy was there all along. All that really happened is because of the call, he allowed himself to open up his heart, and boom, everything comes out.
Yeah, I think that more ties into almost codependency.
Well, I'm sure it does, no doubt about that. He was trying to illustrate how easy and powerful that energy is. That when you're in the flow, however you get there, when you're in that flow, all of a sudden that energy is just whoa! It's almost addictive in at that point, just because you're
Yeah,
feeling it so
yeah,
powerfully. Whereas when you're in the other state that you put yourself in, he didn't talk about that part, but when you're in that other state that you're in because, oh, she broke up with me, you've closed yourself off from it entirely. And
yeah.
he was illustrating there's what the big difference is between the energy and cutting yourself off from the energy.
Yeah, you know what's funny? In some of the coaching that I do, we talk a lot about anabolic and catabolic energy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so to your point, the energy's always there,
Yeah.
right? It's either, is it the, and we'll use plus and minus for the sake of just making it easier, but is it a positive energy or is it a negative energy, right?
Mhm.
Is it a breakdown energy or is it a buildup energy? And then what can potentially shift that is your, you know, several influencers, obviously, right? Social influencers, family, it could be economic, physical, all of those. But it's really how you start perceiving things,
Mm.
right? So the catabolic energies being that are taking away your, almost kind of like an energy vampire, right?
Mhm.
Where you look at that like victim mindset or the angry and frustrated person, those are all catabolic energies. Whereas then you start shifting into compassion and opportunity and synergy and transcendence. Those are all building up energy, anabolic energies, right? So, and again, neither are good or bad. Some of them, all of them serve a purpose, right? So sometimes we do need that victim mentality to help us get through something. um, but are we tapping into those energies by choice?
That's an interesting point you just made. We need the victim energy in order to get through something. Let's
Yeah.
explore that a little bit further. Talk about what you were thinking about there.
So a lot of times people, when they go through or go into that victim mentality, it's almost like a protective mechanism,
Mhm.
only because it takes away any responsibility from a situation, right? Well, it happened to me. It wasn't my fault. It happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
right? So now you have that perception of the world happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
not for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we all go through that, right? At some point in our lives, we all
Sure.
have that feeling. Um, and it's just, part of, and I'll say grieving, just because it's an easy example, grieving process, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
like I lost that person. Why is this always happening to me? And then
Right.
you go and you're like, oh, I'm angry. And then that slowly increases, right? That angry, frustrated is a step higher from victim mindset. And then you have the next one, which is acceptance, right? You're like, and then you're kind of like, don't really fully cope with the cause that created that victim mentality, kind of brush it under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you start creating more compassion, self-compassion even. And then you start addressing your inner work, right? And then you go into opportunity and synergy and transcendence, and you slowly start going up into these higher levels where you feel euphoric. Talk about being in that state of flow. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, it's like a continuum. It's a pendulum. We don't stay in one energy throughout the entire day, right? It goes up and down. I mean, I can imagine, although I'm sure there are people that are consistently on like that transcendence level, it would be really hard to have a conversation with someone who's always euphoric, right? Imagine you're going through it. You're having a really hard time and you talk to your euphoric friend, right? And they're like, "Oh, life is beautiful. It's great." And you're just like, "No, no, no, no. I need you to be sad with me for a second." I'm like, "I need a little empathy." um so yeah, but we do reach all these energies throughout the day. But to your but that was a really long-winded answer to your question. But
It was good
um
though. I liked it.
oh, good.
Well, I mean, because that's not something we really think about, that the victim energy can actually be beneficial. We usually think of it as something we want to leave behind once we understand what it is. But you found a way to say, look, this is a stepping stone, which is cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And it's just part of human, right? You have to normalize that feeling a little bit and not make someone feel bad for feeling victimized. I mean, that's
Hmm.
okay. We also don't know their background or what they've been through, right? So that's something that we also have to keep in mind when we're talking to, friends, family,
Yeah.
acquaintances.
Because I think there's a balance
Everyone.
here. I mean, I think what we're
Yeah,
really talking about is the difference between, am I going to feel like a victim or am I going to live as a victim?
exactly. Exactly. And is it by choice?
Yeah,
Right?
there's another
Am
one.
I choosing to be in that victim mindset because I really don't want to deal
Hmm.
with the responsibility and I want to just get sympathy from people? I just want
Hmm.
people to like feel bad for me for a second,
Which is really
right?
all about that energy again. I can't feel my own energy, so I got to get it from somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. And then going back to that codependency, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And there it is again. Boy, that stuff just comes back over and over again. Talk about law of attraction. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It's crazy, but it comes back because it's relevant.
Yeah.
And it's always relevant,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know? It's just part of who we are. Some people choose to use it or believe in it and some don't, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's just like you say, that's part of life. We
Yeah,
are human beings, and a human being is a spiritual being having a physical experience. And
exactly.
that is sometimes hard to handle. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
really easy to handle. A lot of times it's easy to handle, but sometimes it's just a pain in the ass to handle that. It is.
Yeah, but handling it makes you stronger.
It
It
does.
makes right? It makes you stronger, it makes you more resilient.
Hmm.
So there's no it's always an opportunity, right?
Hmm.
It's always an opportunity.
I was looking at your website, and you had a couple of interesting headings. I wanted to address each one of them individually because I think they're all.
Sure.
We could do shows on all three of them, but we'll just do a little bit of a show. First one, the first one we've been talking about indirectly here. Let's talk about directly. Self mastery.
Yeah. So that's really again going back into living your life as an observer and participant at the same time. Right, picking those energies. So a lot of what I do is through that core energy work where we go from victim to transcendence,
Hmm.
and allowing the person to actively choose which energy do they want to experience in any particular situation, right? And then in order to do that, you really need to understand you, right? Even more so than you already do.
Mm.
And that's where the self mastery part comes in.
I like the two words that you use. Let's see if I remember them correctly. This is a little bit of a quiz. I think the words that you used were to be the observer and be the participant.
Yes.
And there's definitely a balance to be found there. That's not always the easiest balance to find.
No, it's not. That is probably the toughest thing to achieve. But once it is achieved, it's and again, it's not always constant, right? We're
Hmm.
human.
Right.
We'll all regress at some point and then progress at another. But once you do hit that point of that, you know, detached involvement,
Mm.
it really is an amazing experience where you can look at your life as though you're watching a movie and you're like, okay, I'm going to play this part right now.
That's a great phrase, detached involvement. That you
Yeah.
kind of you focus on that one for a while, and you get a sense that wow, you can really do those things at the same time, and of course you can. But
Yeah.
initially, you say, "Is that possible?"
Yeah, it is. What it means is also not being attached to any outcome.
Mm,
So when you're talking about self mastery, you're really looking at your life as an opportunity for constant growth. So you're never reaching a pinnacle, because once you reach that pinnacle, where do you go? Right?
you go into
So
non-physical.
yeah, exactly. But it's a constant progression to improving yourself.
Mm,
Right? So it's almost that like mastery orientation where you're always a student
mhm.
and there's always so much to learn, and then seeing the opportunities that come with that.
That's what I found to be really an optimum viewpoint. It's how I do the podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
I literally started this podcast because I wasn't just a student. I was in dire straits, and I was in such dire straits. To give you the background of it, I started the podcast in 2012 because in 2008, my business and my wife's business both got wiped out by the financial crisis with a
Oh,
stroke of the pen. We were just devastated, and we just struggled for the next 4 years trying to climb out. And all we did was get deeper and deeper in debt, deeper and deeper in despair. It was really, really bad time, and it was so bad that I couldn't afford to hire a coach. I couldn't afford to buy a self-help book. I couldn't afford to do anything. I couldn't afford to go to the
yeah.
bathroom. It was crazy, so I said, well, I'll start a podcast. I can do that for free, and I can get people to come on my show and teach me. And so that viewpoint actually was probably the best viewpoint I could have adopted, because I became the student. I wasn't here to
Yeah.
tell people what to do. I was here to learn. And
And
it
look
was,
at all the amazing knowledge and nuggets that you took from all of that. That's amazing.
it is. It amazes me. I
Yeah,
mean, I look
I
at how many
mean,
episodes I
good
did.
for
Like,
you.
whoa, oh my goodness. Wow. I came. And the best part was, like I said, I did it because I was in desperate straits. My mind was not in a good place at all. And
Yeah.
I've learned since then how to regain control and fix stuff, and basically become more mindful, more in the moment,
Mhm.
let go of blocks and all that good stuff. I've learned all
Yeah.
that stuff along the way. And it's been great. And I'm still learning it. But the perspective itself is the best part, because when you
Yeah.
start with that perspective, then everything opens up to you. It's amazing how it opens up.
Yeah. And
In
there we
fact,
go.
when you take the other perspective, the one of I'm here to teach you something, it all closes up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a saying, everyone we encounter is not only our teacher, but also our student.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a give and take. We always learn and we always teach at the same time.
And then
And
the big surprise for me was, not only did I actually make the progress I was looking to make, but I was loving it. It was fun. I mean, that's why I continue to do it's 10 years later. Next month is my 10th anniversary. And
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it's exciting, but it literally, the only reason I've gotten this far is because not only did I do a lot of the growing I needed to do, and I'm still doing, but
Mhm.
I found I enjoyed it so much. That was a surprise. I didn't expect
Yeah.
that was going to happen. I thought I was going to do, maybe 100 episodes or something and I'd be done. But no, it's like I can't get enough of it anymore. Talk about addiction. And it's the best kind of addiction, because I don't have to go dry out in Arizona. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, no, that's great. And like all the goodness that comes of it. And that tap goes back into tapping into potentially feeling that state of flow as you're going through this, right? I
Mm,
mean,
yeah.
as you do, I mean, you're doing two back to back.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I'm ready to go.
There's some people who would say they'd be overwhelmed by that. I'm saying, yeah, give me the next one. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. That's beautiful. That's amazing. Way to take a situation and see the opportunity from it, and then allow yourself to grow and make something so great of it.
Well, I'll take some credit for that, but honestly, I kind of slipped into it. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like I deliberately said, "Well, I'm going to learn to adopt this new viewpoint." No, it just kind of happened. I got lucky by default in a sense, and I kind
Yeah,
of ended up doing the right thing. Maybe it was internal guidance. I don't know. All I know
yeah.
is it worked out a whole lot better than I thought it was going to.
Well, a lot of people say that luck is opportunity and preparation together, right? So there,
Mhm.
the opportunity was there, and you were prepared to take a step towards it. So,
And plus,
so
I had an
you,
IT background, so I was one of the few people who could figure out how to do it when all the current services we have weren't available. I had to kind of figure
oh,
out how
there
do you
you go.
record this stuff, right?
Yeah, so there you go. You used your strength to like propel you forward.
Yeah,
That's great.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
I
let's.
envy
Oh,
the
go ahead.
IT people. I
Mhm.
I am so not computer savvy whatsoever.
Yeah, most people aren't. Don't worry about it. The one thing that I found is the most comforting for people who have challenges with computers
Mhm.
is for me to remind them that doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. There are so many people who can help you with your computer. The last thing you want to do is worry about your computer,
Oh,
because
that's true.
it's not like we live in an age where it's not like when I first started with computers. I started back in the 1980s when nobody knew how to use a computer, and I was like there to train people because they didn't know how to do it. There were no phones. There were no, well, I mean, there were phones, but there weren't the smartphones like we have
Yeah.
today. The laptop hadn't been invented yet, and nobody really understood how to use all this stuff. It's completely different now. Heck, you can.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you have trouble using something, just go to Google. It'll tell you how to do it, for goodness sake. It's great.
That's so true. Yeah, Google knows everything.
That's right. Yes. It is the oracle.
Yeah.
So going back to your website, I want to go to the second topic that you raised. The second one
Sure.
is leadership. And you talk
Yes.
about the Eli assessment. Through the Eli assessment, our leadership coaching addresses areas of development. Let's talk about that a little bit. Where did you bring that
Okay.
into it?
Beautiful. I love that you brought that up because that ties into those anabolics and catabolic energies
Okay.
I was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
So, what the ELI assessment does, it really measures what your average resonating level of energy is throughout a day. So, I mean, it has a whole algorithm where you take the assessment, and then it does the algorithm, and then it spits out the results. And then it gives you your average resonating level of energy. How are you carrying yourself throughout the day naturally?
Mhm.
And then when you're feeling great, what levels do you sit in? And when you're dealing with stress, where do you sit in? And then it also talks about different areas in your life where these are more prevalent, which
Mhm.
where each energy is more prevalent. So it really gives me and the client a lot of insight on how we want to pursue the coaching,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
where is it that you see that you're a little more catabolic and you want to experience a little more fulfillment and joy, right? Where are those areas in your life? And this assessment really dives in. I mean, it's I I'm still awed by it, and I was certified with it over 6 months ago, and I'm just like, what? It is, and it's so dead on accurate.
That's really cool because
It's
what that I can just see that being perfectly applicable for somebody who knows they've got issues, know they need to work on stuff, but they don't even know where to begin. If that helps
yeah,
them know exactly where to begin.
yeah, exactly. And the reason why I like to use it in leadership is, you know, we're leaders in everything, whether
Mhm.
whether by default or by choice, right?
Right.
By a title. But we carry that leadership with us in some capacity in our lives. So, yes, leadership is executive. It can be in that realm, but it's also how do you lead your own life? How
Mm.
do you lead and allow people to be influenced by you in a positive way, not manipulated, but like how do
Mhm.
you influence people positively, right? So it's more towards geared towards that as well. It's being a leader of your own life and really sitting at the steering wheel and owning the road.
That strikes me as being very likely a really common point of conversation between you and your clients in that I can see a lot of people saying either to themselves or to you, "Well, Yeah, I never really associate leading my life with leading somebody else in a business.
Yeah, but I mean, those skills are transferable.
They are.
Yeah, they're very transferable, and you know, and the more you start seeing it as that, the better you'll apply it not only at work but also at life,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, you know, it's just exercising it constantly.
And then my third, your third point on your website, your third major bullet point is the one that I'm glad you placed a third because I think it's the most important one. That's why I like finishing up with that one. Wellness coaching, and
Wellness coaching,
I want to
yes.
touch on that on a lot of different ways. But let's start with how you touch on it. When you think about wellness, what does that word mean to you?
So I look at it as deep health. So
Mhm.
deep health can be anywhere from stress management, sleep coaching, it can be regenerative strategies to your physicality, it can be nutrition coaching, and it's also training. So I prior to coaching, I was a personal trainer for 15 years.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so I mean, I think that's really what piqued my coaching curiosity. But so it does encompass the physical aspect,
Hmm.
but also lifestyle behaviors that can supplement whatever goal you're trying to achieve. And most often than not, people are always coming with like a performance goal or an outcome goal, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And the goal there is just to kind of teach them that, hey, I love that you have that goal, but you know, once we achieve that, what's next, right? So you, again, going back to that mastery orientation, let's look at being a little better every day instead of just trying to reach this one goal, right? The you know, body fat loss, I want to lose, you know, 10 pounds or 10% body fat, whatever the case may be. And I'm like, let's not focus on the numbers. Let's focus on the actions that you can implement on a day to day, that the number will be a byproduct of those actions. So if we can hone in on these habits and make sure that we're being consistent with them, you'll get there. But I mean, you know, weight loss, total health and wellness, it's all encompassing. It's really not just the gym. It's nutrition is a big part of it. Stress management is huge, especially now with, you know,
Oh, yeah.
everything going on. And you know, and not only with the economy, but also, you know, families and, you know, depression and all of that. It's so huge. So being able to assist those people with how to better deal with these situations and then getting them one step closer to just feeling better in their own skin is really where that coaching lies.
And plus wellness also actually touches on physical health. I mean,
Yeah,
besides the stress, not that stress doesn't affect physical health, obviously it does in a major way.
yeah,
But I mean like diseases,
yeah,
it's one of the things that I think even the medical profession is just beginning to come to grips with. They aren't really ready yet, but they're getting closer to it. And that is the idea that our thought processes lead to disease and
yeah,
simultaneously they lead to health. They
yep,
lead to getting better. That
yeah.
this is like to me, this is one of the most revolutionary ideas out there right now, and
But
it's
yeah,
barely getting attention, but it's so vital.
yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, those that negative self-talk being addictive. You
Mm.
can talk yourself into sickness.
Oh, easily.
And you can talk yourself into wellness as well, right?
Takes
I
a little
mean,
practice, but you can do it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we do essentially have this superpower within us that no one's really tapping into. You
Mm.
know, I mean,
Very little.
how amazing would it be if you would be able to um, just almost heal yourself? Actually, I'll use myself as an example. I was recently diagnosed with hyperthyroidism, and it
Ooh,
was
my wife had
cor-
that.
yeah, so it was
Mm.
correlated to having COVID.
Mhm.
And I remember going to my endocrinologist, and she was like, "All right, we're going to put you on this medication. You're going to be on it for 3 months, and then you're going to come back." And I'm like, "No, I'll be on it for 1 month." I'm like, "I'll be on it for 1 month, and I'll come back, and we'll modify." And she's like, "1 month is not enough." And I'm like, "Well, just do it, just to, you know, ease my mind."
Humor me.
Yeah, humor me. So we did a month, and sure enough, after a month of doing this, I kept on telling myself, I'm like, I'm not staying on this medication. I'm like, my body can do this.
Hmm.
Sure enough, she's like, we need to cut this by over like 75%. It's way
Yeah.
too high. Your body's hyper responding. And I'm like, I
Hmm.
told you. I'm like, I knew this.
That's fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it is the power of the mind. I mean, I was doing meditation over this and thinking of like, imagining my body and my metabolism working the way it should be. And I really attribute, that health into creating that mental strength and grit to being healthy. So yeah, we all have that. We all have that ability.
Yeah, we do, which is very cool. We just have to learn to, first of all, believe that we have it. And second
Yeah.
of all, to actually exercise it and put it to
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
and
And
trust
I
that it
think the
actually is going to
first
work.
part is probably the hardest part.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We,
Because
we
once
have a
you
similar.
believe it. I'm
Mhm.
sorry?
I was just gonna say we have a very similar story with my wife. My wife, I actually currently run her business. She's retired. It's a gardening
Mhm.
service maintenance business. Circa 2017, 2018, I could see it was taking a big toll on her. I didn't
Yeah.
realize how big of a toll it was because she developed the hyperthyroidism.
Mm.
And I could tell, I knew that the whole thought process surrounding the business and all the focus on negative stuff and not, just getting frustrated and stressed and overwhelmed and all that kind of stuff, it was just building and building and building and building. So when she finally got so sick that she got diagnosed with the hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, great name for it, by the
Mhm.
way, Graves' disease.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I mean, all appreciation to Dr. Graves, but could they please pick another name? Um, but anyway, I remember that. Well, there were a few things. First of all, there was a major episode on Christmas Eve,
Mm.
and she was in the hospital on Christmas Eve, and they were keeping
Oh.
her overnight. So all of a sudden, the Christmas holiday was going to disappear, and it was almost like that was a turning point because despite the fact that she had to go through a bunch more stuff after that, that was almost the point where between the two of us, we both decide, no, we're done with this. No, no,
That's
no, no, no,
it.
no, 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 no. This is not the way this is going to play out. And it started that day. She actually was able to come home on Christmas Day, despite the fact they thought that she wasn't going to be able to. And then it was go see
Amazing.
the endocrinologist, and she also had to go see a cardiologist because there was also an atrial fibrillation thing going on along with it.
Yeah.
And so it was like all these doctors that we're going to, and all the doctors are saying, "Oh, you're going to be on this for life. You're probably going to have to burn out your thyroid, and you have to go through all surgeries and blah 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 blah." And we're looking at each other, we're saying, "No, no, no, that's not the way it's going to go." And they're putting
Yeah.
her on the medications, and they're amping it up, and she was finally to the point where it's like the highest level. Oh no, we got to do the surgeries now. We said, "No, no, 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 no."
So
And
she
then
never did it.
and within 6 months, all of a sudden they said, we need to have you reduce the dosage. And then a month later it was, we have to reduce it again. And then a few months after that, it was, we need to take you off this for a bit, just entirely, just to see what happens. And she hasn't been on since then.
That's amazing.
That's despite the
That's
fact that they told her 100% confidence, not even likely, 100% confidence she was going to be on the drug for life.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that so frustrating that it's such a quick it's a band-aid.
Oh yeah.
It's a band-aid. Like, I mean, this is a whole other topic, right? The medical industry here
No,
in the
we've done that
United
one quite a few
States.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, so
Not just in
let's
the US
not
either.
dive into that. But it really is unfortunate. I mean,
Yeah.
instead of it being reactive, I think, and I do somewhat see a little bit of a shift
There
in
is a shift. Yes.
socially, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think people are being a little bit more proactive with their
Yeah.
health,
Yeah.
which is amazing. It's great
Yes.
to see. Yeah.
And we're seeing it, I think, within the medical profession too. I've had a number of doctors on the show who are talking about how they have been kind of stepping away. I mean, they recognize they're dealing with a monolith too, and they're saying, I'm not going to quite go with the monolith, and yeah, I'm going to take some flack from the monolith, but I'm going to go my way
Yep.
anyway.
Yeah, and good for them. I mean, it
Yeah,
takes a lot of strength to go against the grain.
it
So
does.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
We need more people like that.
well, it's exciting to me.
Yeah, it is.
That's the best signal that I get that that change is happening. That there are
Yeah.
improvements going on here.
Yeah,
Because
especially when you get the professionals being a part of it. You're just like,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
because
Yeah.
now I feel like we're getting a lot closer to that point where we finally do recognize and realize on a health system level
Mhm.
that our thoughts do become things, that our thoughts do make us sick. Our thoughts can make us well as well.
Yeah.
They're on the point right now where they're understanding to some degree that thoughts can make us sick. The next step is going to be identifying that thoughts can make us well.
Yeah. Yeah, neuroscience is amazing. I mean,
Mhm.
if I could turn back time, I would definitely go back to school for that because understand the power of the mind. I mean,
Yeah.
going back to us all being superheroes, right? We all have this superpower, and if we could just all just use it for our health and betterment, I mean, that would be amazing.
What would also be amazing is if I had a whole lot more time to do this conversation with you because I'm loving this, but I'm completely up against the wall here, so I got to stop. But I need
Of
to do
course.
a couple things before we stop. First of all, I need you to tell people how do they find you?
So you can email me at Danielle@coachdam.com,
Okay.
or you can go to my Instagram. It's i.am.coach.dam.
I love it.
So that's it.
Okay. We'll make sure we'll include a link in the show notes to make it easy to find your website too.
All right,
And then
beautiful.
the other thing I need to do is I need to tell you something that I've been making a point to tell people who are
Sure.
guests on the show. And that is on behalf of the people that you have never met, that you've never talked to, that you never will meet, that you never will talk to, who have heard you or who have read something that you've written or something, and you've helped them in some way. You'll never know about it, but I think it's important for you to hear thank you on their behalf for what you've been doing for them, because there are so many ways that you're touching people that you'll never see, but boy, you're touching people. So thank you for the work that you're doing in that regard too.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That means the world to me. Thank
Fabulous.
you.
Absolutely love it. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.